It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Tuesday, November 21st. The year is 2023. This is the Voice of Reason podcast. As always, my name is Sean Phillips. Tonight, I am joined alongside my co-host, Mr. Andy Van Beber, our good friend, good Samaritan, and good father. Travis is out on diaper duty this evening, so he is a bit preoccupied and probably messy hand right now. So I am awaiting
I want to see the
arrival of my co-host with the bottle here momentarily.
Yeah,
so
she is.
Should be here in just a moment.
Yeah, she is. Man, how you doing, pal? How's Dad? Tell me the latest. How's Dad life treating you?
Dad life is good right now. It's been a bit crazy these last couple weeks with the move. Naturally, everything's kind of a bit wonky. We're in a weird kind of transitional phase where, to put it blankly, when we made the move, I took a job working for a company, and that was, it pays very well. It's a job.
Right.
I will be leaving this job as soon as I can leave. It's horrible. It is the least. I would say I've had one miserable job in my entire life. I have actually thoroughly enjoyed working at most of the places I've ever worked at, even if like the work was shit, the environment was good. So up until this point, this is easily bar none the worst job I've ever had in my life. The worst job I've ever had, or second worst job I've ever had in my life, was with Travis. Travis and I actually worked at the same place for a summer. This was the summer before we went to college. We worked for a company called Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, which is a textbook warehouse in Troy, Missouri.
Yep.
And it was the worst job I've had up until this point, where my current job.
Some of those stories you guys told were classic.
My current job is by far the worst job I've ever had in my life. So hopefully in a week or two, it'll be a thing of the past.
It's Tony. We'll Hi, Tony.
A special appearance by my better half for a second, and then mini me.
Oh. And Big Sister life? How's Big Sister life?
Big Sister life is she's doing well. She's adjusting. She's an amazing big sister. A huge help around the house. She definitely has her moments where she's like, wait a minute. You used to have time to pick me up and do these things, and now there's this little mutant is always attached to your hips. So there's definitely some days she, seems more over it, but she's head over heels over this kid.
Good,
as we all are. So we've got two pretty good ones. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm so I get happy when I see that image, that face right there. Hopefully I can catch up with you when you're back in the Pike County area this weekend. But by the way, we'll be the first to say it on this podcast. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. We know that this is busy time, but we wanted to be sure to definitely get in stories this week. We have a lot of things to reach out and touch about today. Thank you for another week of over 1,000 views on TikTok, Facebook. It is awesome. For all of our friends who listen later on, I will go out and say that the AI, our friend Patrick Connor, who listens down in Southeast Missouri, Patrick, I'm using AI to generate the our TikTok clips now. It's something else. Thanks to the folks at Van Beber and Son DJ Service for their sponsorship on that to pay for that. It's so we've got the AI generated TikToks. It's actually much easier to do, but yeah.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because like whenever I've been watching the clips and seeing them in my feed, I'm like, when does this guy have the time to edit like all of these things? But I'm like, no need to edit when iRobot. It's actually funny. At our new house we have there's a legit movie theater room in the clubhouse here that's next to where we live.
Really?
And so it's got a Blu-ray player hooked up to it. It's very nice. It's 12-person seated theater. It's legit.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's full freeze. Comes with the price of admission.
Nice.
But we watched. We did a double feature the other night where we watched Hotel Transylvania. Great
Nice.
movie.
Yes.
And then for the mom and dad movie, we watched I, Robot. And it's so funny because remember that movie. Do you remember the year that it's supposed to be in that movie?
What? No.
Like 2030, like 2034. Yeah,
man, they got the floating cars and everything. That's
yeah. It's
goodness.
It's such a fun movie, but it's also funny just because that is a prime example of AI going into business for itself for the betterment of the only way to keep humans from killing humans is to kill a certain amount of humans and make them be overprotected. Yeah, love it.
That was a great show. We want to start out tonight. I want to go from talking about artificial intelligence to talking about no intelligence. Since we weren't on, we didn't get this until later in the week. Our good buddy and douchebag representative from the great state of New York, George Santos, he's of course in the news, and they had a report done about him and real quick, if you don't know, it's this gentleman right here, George Santos, that guy right there, piece of work. But George Santos was under investigation by a House Rules and Ethics Committee. So last Thursday, what is it, 5 days ago, they released a 56-page report detailing all of the things. And for those of you who don't know, this is the guy who lied practically about everything about himself to his voters. He's like, I'm gay. I'm a starting I played volleyball for this, NCAA D2 school, and
he had other things where he said maybe I'm wrong, but didn't he say one of his parents was involved in 9/11 at the World Trade Centers?
His great grandfather or somebody, or grandfather, great grandfather was part of the was victim of the Holocaust and all this stuff. And
if you look at for those of our listeners that are more local and might know who we're talking about, because I know we've mentioned him a couple times on the podcast, but George, he reminds me of a good friend of ours, Reed Leak. They have the same kind of facial structure and look. So basically, they are the same guy.
Yeah, there you go, Rito. But some of the things that so Santos had boasted about his family wealth. In reality, investigators said he was broke. Campaign funds. This is one of my favorite things about campaign funds from one of his PACs were used for Botox and shopping at luxury stores. On 2 occasions, the expenses were noted as Botox in spreadsheets that were given to the committee. Another thing was he paid down personal credit card bills and other debt. He made, I don't know the store Hermes. I don't know what that is, but he made a $4,000.
Oh, Hermes. Hermes is that's super luxury brand. So think you have a Saint Laurent, Chanel.
Oh, okay.
You could buy a $20,000 bag at Hermes.
$4,127 at Hermes. I never heard of that before. And for smaller purchase, here you go, Sean, at OnlyFans, Sephora, but the OnlyFans, I was like, George getting
did the so it was funny. So whenever I saw that, I would see the post that would say here he is, he spent money on OnlyFans account. And then underneath it, I would see account, it would be OnlyFans, accounts would tweet, and it would be he was my number one fan, and it would have monthly payments to account from George Soros, $400,000 and shit like that.
Oh my God!
It was so funny. I don't know how if any of it was true, but there was one that it was funny because it was his name, and again, this could be fabricated, but it was hilarious. Where it was monthly subscription $15.99, personalized text, $397,000, because like
Whoa.
some of them have where like you can they will text with you, and but
Talk.
like in some of them they can set up where it costs per text. And what's funny is that like most of the
God.
time, like in a lot of cases, not most of the time, but in a lot of cases for
Oh
some of the
man.
more famous or like bigger accounts, it's just some dude or group of dudes that they pay sitting behind a computer that act as them,
Ghost Riders.
to be messaging with these dudes that are like, oh, what's your day like? They'll just, that's their job, is to,
Just to be,
paid to,
yeah. So they're
yeah.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Santos campaign. This report also says Santos campaign staff saw him as a fabulist and urged him to seek treatment. Per the report, Santos sustained all of this through constant lies to his constituents, donors, and staff about his background and experience. Members of his own staff viewed him as a fabulist whose penchant for telling lies was so concerning that he was encouraged to seek treatment. I mean, and it just goes on and on and on about, one other $20,000, part of which was used to shop at Ferragamo, whatever that is.
Heard of that one, but it's
Uh,
probably some other fancy either restaurant
well,
or something,
he's
luxury brand.
he's also failing to report some of his income on his taxes, some in the neighborhood of about 70 grand. So, you know, this guy, I mean, the laundry list of lies that he had already told, you know, like he said, and they have a list on it too. Things that he said, um, where he went to high school at, and the thing you said about his mother in September 11th. Santos said his mother was inside one of the World Trade Center towers when they were attacked on September 11th. Immigration records indicate that Santos' mother wasn't in the United States on that day. God. Um, where does Santos even live on Long Island? Does he even actually have residence in Long Island in the area that he, where he's representing? You know, I really I know that congressmen are just they all he's but this is like over the top, really. This is over the
Oh,
top.
100%.
When you
And what do you think it is that, like, how do guys like this get elected in the first place? How are things like that even a
in
possibility?
a blue state nonetheless too. In a blue
Hmm.
state, I look at how so he represents Long Island, and that's the only. And I've never been to New York City, believe it or not, but I have been to Long Island. I had some family who used to live out there, and we actually flew into the airport actually out in Long Island, and you go out there. You drive out to Montauk. That is just like the wealthy heart of Long Island, and
Hmm.
I would imagine that this guy had to lie just to make himself look like, oh, he's one of us. He's
Hmm.
one of our people. I think that that's where it probably starts. And to me, I mean, all these lies that he states, and I mean, it is not almost borderline. It is pathological. It's straight pathological lying. And
100%.
and I mean, so they're I don't know if they'll get this done before the holiday break or not. But they'll come back, I think, for a few days after Thanksgiving, and then they go on holiday break until what is it, January the stimulus thing, or the not stimulus, the stopgap spending bill comes up on January the 4th, so they'll be back by
Hmm.
then. But one of the things that they're going to address is going to be of his expulsion out. I mean, they've got everything they need, and once he gets expelled, I mean, there'll be criminal prosecution. They'll be
No, 100%.
they'll prosecute him because when you lie to the Federal Election Committee, which is where part of this is at, there. I mean, sky's the limit. They'll nail this guy,
Mm.
and rightfully so. I don't think he'd but such is the case in Washington, D.C. We should expect anything less. Um, But it is what it is. So we wanted to briefly talk about that. I don't want to waste any more of my breath talking about that guy, but he's definitely wanted to report on that. I just got a. I don't know if I just and I just briefly want to say this, and then Sean's got. We got a topic we're going into, but breaking news as of I just saw this come across my phone. Sean, I don't know if you've heard this or not. This was an hour ago, but the Israeli cabinet has approved a deal to release hostages during a pause in fighting. They've made a deal with Hamas that they will pause for a 4-day ceasefire, and Hamas will release 50 hostages.
Oh,
So,
wow. No, that's big.
10 hostages
there's
10 hostages will extend the pause in fighting by 1 day. So there may be, if the longer they go
mhm.
with peace, that they've agreed to. I guess that numbers don't make sense to me, but 4 days of ceasefire, 50 hostages, that didn't make sense. But so anyway, but that will be in. Hamas says 150 Palestinians will be released from Israeli jails under the deal as well. So I mean, if you're familiar with the Middle East and how Hamas and Israelis work, that's usually their protocol is we release some of yours for some of ours. So good news on that. Sean, why don't you go into a little bit about your topic, and definitely we've got a couple people on tonight. I don't know if we did spring this on people that we were going to be on tonight to last minute, but definitely I want this interesting topic that you've come up with, and I think something that we need to address.
Yeah, and I apologize for listeners if there's a baby grumbling in the background.
No worries.
But no, so one of the things I wanted to kind of go over and just get your guys' opinions on, and if there's some discussion, great. But so one of the recent trends that we've kind of been seeing over the last couple of years, I would definitely say the uptick has been in recent years, like a lot of the things that we've been talking about on this show, has been people that are doing uh, pranks, whether it's an actual prank or whether it's actual, I wouldn't even call it a prank, committing crimes for the internet on social media for clout, whatever it is. And I think now, like the big thing is we are starting to see it be younger and younger, young teenagers breaking the law, having it on video, for notoriety, for it to go viral, for them to get followers, whatever it might be. So I kind of wanted to open the discussion to where what your guys' thoughts were on, with this being an uptick and a thing that becomes common. Should there be separate laws, both in defense of people that are affected by the individuals, that are, whether it's some guy that's trying to make a YouTube video of him sucker punching people in the back of the head? That was an actual video that I saw. um, should there be leniency for retaliation, because there's an incident I'll bring up here, but also should there be harsher punishment? So for example, with an assault, right, that first degree, so whatever it is, an assault charge, should there be a more enforceable punishment, larger punishment, more severe punishment for people that are doing the same laws, however they're doing them for social media? I think that, in my opinion, and again, the reason why I bring it up is because there's an uptick in these things, specifically in younger people. If we enacted harsher punishments on people that are doing it for social media, should there be harsher punishments to make a bigger um, a bigger deal out of it, so that way we can see these numbers lower as opposed to continue to rise?
I'm just looking up right now.
This is the story of Khaleesi William, a 16.
I didn't want that to play, but there, some of these crimes that are being committed, that is, they like one you were talking about, that these guys play out are like, you said, like the one guy's coming up to him saying, hey, hey, you want me to, you want to fight and all this other stuff, and the dude pulls a gun on him, and shoots the dude. And I think,
Yeah. So originally, in that particular case, there was a YouTuber, mind you, a 31-year-old. Okay, a 31-year-old YouTuber, by the way, who was going up to. Um, oh, I lied. No, Tanner Cook, a 21-year-old YouTuber, who was going up to individuals. He was at a mall food court, threatening them, following them around, and threatening them. The individual in Alan Coyley, 31, ended up shooting Tanner Cook because he felt threatened by him. So Tanner Cook wouldn't stop. Again, was doing this for YouTube. But originally, thankfully, earlier last month, Alan Coyley was acquitted of aggravated malicious wounding, even though originally he was charged for shooting. But again, in my opinion, something that was self-defense, because again, in today's society, you never know what someone's going to do to you, and if they come up to you and threaten that they're going to shoot you, kill you. I remember there was a video of an individual. Thankfully, he was arrested but released the next day, where there was a YouTuber at an airport, nonetheless, going up to people, threatening to stab them as they were entering the airport
oh
before he was
my
finally
gosh.
asked to leave. But again, filming it for YouTube, going up to random people, threatening to kill them, threatening to stab them, and then going away laughing once they finally retaliate. And then again, like, I'm not even going to say why is that a thing, because people are inherently fucking stupid. And throughout history, people have always done dumb shit. But now, when people record it and they start influencing young people, like, again, the case that we were talking about earlier, where two teenagers went joyriding on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, recording themselves running over people who were on their bikes, and they hit several people, but they killed a man that was a retired police chief in Vegas. And then the first video footage of those two boys in court, they're laughing back and forth with one another, because they, in their heads, they know, I might just do a couple of years, but we're 16, 17 years old, so there's no real punishment that we're going to get. And in my opinion, no, there needs to be more severe punishment for individuals that are doing things for clout like that. Like, in my opinion, I don't understand why those two individuals, at least definitely the one that was driving, doesn't get life in prison without parole. I don't understand why things like this are, if they take someone's life, you kill someone, why are you only doing 10, 15 years? Or why are you doing 3 years in juvenile detention with 10 years probation? That doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how being guilty of taking someone's life means your own is not taken away. And then especially in a case where it was done for social media. I just, it hurts my head. And that's why I wanted to, pick your brain and see what your thoughts are.
Let's look at, first of all, I want to examine this root cause. Let's go down, first of all, just for the fact that they're doing this stuff for YouTube. And with the advent of social media, be it TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, anything where you can get instant gratification from, and I've watched a lot of studies about this. I've watched and I've read a lot of studies about basically the dopamine, the chemical in the brain that's released whenever these people get, they seek approval, and it starts out by, okay, what can I do to gain more followers, likes? What can I do? You can trace this back to some of the early guys who I think about. Which one of the Paul brothers was first on social? Was it Jake or was it Logan?
Logan was first. It's weird because I don't remember exactly. They were almost the same time. They had both been on Disney, I do believe, beforehand, before they made the transition to like YouTube.
And Logan Paul had did that. I think it was Logan that did, when they went to Japan and they went to this.
That was Logan.
Mm-hmm. And they went to this forest where people were known to hang themselves at. Mm-hmm. And they were in this forest and they came across a guy, and he published that on YouTube. Like, oh my God. Oh. and for what reason?
Hmm.
Before we even get to talk about the crime aspect of this, the drive that I see more and more in teenagers now, and I have, since we started this podcast, that's when I did not have a TikTok account before this podcast. If I did, it was right there, right together.
Hmm.
And just the number of, and so we have, the more I have a personal account, and we also have an account for the show, and just some of the stuff that just is posted is just bizarre. Some of the behavior that's posted and some of these viral trends are just bizarre. Um, and I look on YouTube, and I mean, you have these stars, if you will call them. Another one that I remembered, and I just looked up. If you haven't heard of the Alan and Alex Stokes, okay, and these guys are also known for doing the prank. They've done a couple of different pranks, like they do the first one that they were known for was where one of them basically runs up. They're wearing like what do you call that, a hijab or what,
Hmm.
and they run up in a park, and they're running up with a suitcase, and then they just drop it in front of these people, and then
Hmm.
and then you hear that song, run, dun 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 dun,
Hmm.
and those guys run off, and people just go nuts. Well, one of the things that they got in trouble for, and I had to look this up because I remember this. This was 3 years ago. One of the pranks that they did was they put on ski masks, and they go to these big banks, and I don't know what city it was in, but they put these ski masks on, and they run down the steps in front of and they've got, like, I don't know if you can't tell if it's real money or fake paper money or whatever, but they've got it dripping out of the bag, and they're running, and they're running. All these people are watching them, and like, oh my gosh. And then the cops finally, somebody finally calls the cops, and the cops like, why we're stopping, why we're arresting you. You can't.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, it's a prank for YouTube. It's a prank for YouTube. And the cops are like, yeah, you're pranking, breaking the law, and you're causing public disturbance.
Hmm.
Well, but just to listen to their argument is just so moronic that I think the kids are getting outside their own head, and they're not recognizing, hey, what I'm doing is stupid, and over the years of being an educator, I see this more and more whenever, I've broken up my fair share of fights.
Hmm.
And, last year on the last day of school, I got clocked in the job breaking up a fight between two girls. And had it not been for our guidance counselor, who also came down there, pulled one of the other. Do you know what the majority of those students were doing? Who were standing
Filming.
there? They're filming it.
Hmm.
Instead of helping us break up the fight, they're filming it.
Hmm.
And the idea is, who can be first at posting it on social media? Because
Hmm.
some of the most viewed stuff on is people doing these fights. And there's what's that site that has all the street something world. Oh,
They used to be. I'm pretty sure it was like
what was the name of that site?
it's like, was it Hip Hop Worldwide or something?
Yeah, it was something. Oh, what was that? Yeah, it's something like that. But it was something worldwide.
World Star. Wait, World Star?
Yes,
World Star Hip Hop?
Yeah,
World
and
Star Hip Hop.
all that it was devoted to fights.
Yep.
These fights of
And just other random fucking
yeah.
nonsense shit. Yeah. I remember World Star. I was a big fan. I loved World Star back in the day.
But
I'm part of the problem.
God, give me that. Give me that right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But to me, and I don't know where that comes from and why people feel. The science behind it. I wish we could probably get somebody on here who could tell us.
Mm-hmm.
But just the feeling that you get, when you look at some of these guys, when you look at, so if let me go to the Stokes brothers real quick and see how many followers they have. But they have, so the Stokes twins have 24.7 million subscribers. Okay. and they do all of this stuff, and you scroll down through their stuff, and there's a lot of these prank stuff that they do. Now they do other stuff where they're just doing normal ignorant crap, but you get 24.7 million followers just by saying, "Man, how ignorant can we be on, you know, and on YouTube?" And what's bad about it is once you get so many, you get monetized. So not only are
That's
these,
what I was gonna say. Is like I was quite literally about to say that is monetized activity that YouTube is paying for.
yeah. So so YouTube to me, and hey, thank you YouTube for having us on, allowing us to have a page on your channel, but they're part of the problem too. When you look at once you get above, is it 5,000 or 10,000 viewers, they start monetizing. I forgot how all the but I mean, it's all about how ridiculous. What can we do? And so to me, they contribute. They're part of the problem as well. Now, to address what you're saying, what can be done? They've already. So some of the things that you can get in trouble for. I mean, we've already seen. I had a page. When you posted this, I found something. Where was it at? It was basically social media crimes that can. So we already have on the books. So you can't do, obviously, cyber stalking, cyber bullying, hacking, purchasing contraband, posting now. So posting illegal activity. This is in posting footage of any illegal act on social media, even on personal private accounts, can have serious legal consequences in the state of South Carolina. Okay, so South Carolina is one of the first states who are, and I found this interesting, but they're the only ones I could find so far. It says, depending on the type of crime, you could face criminal charges such as harassment, stalking, or fraud. In some cases, you may be charged with a felony offense and can face jail time or hefty fines. In addition to criminal charges, posting video footage of illegal activity can also lead to civil liability, as anyone who was injured or suffered property damage due to your post may sue you for damages. And it says, once something is posted online, it's often difficult to remove and can continue to be accessible long after you delete it from your account, because then it gets copied on other pages. So South Carolina, of all states, South Carolina is one of the first states who are really going after this. But when you posted that earlier, I was like, okay, let me do some research and see. But I'm not finding this anywhere else. And I'm like,
right,
they're getting it right. Of all the states, South Carolina, and Maryland. The only other thing I found that was even somewhat similar was called the Maryland Hate Crimes Commission, who studies and looks into any kind of hate crime that's portrayed on the internet. That's the only other thing I could find. I couldn't find anything anywhere else. And so somebody's at least getting this right and saying there needs to be something done. And if you're in these teens that you mentioned that in Las Vegas that run this guy over with their car, riding a bike, okay. Do we know how old did they say
they were 16 and 17 at the time of one of them, the one that was 17 is 18 now. But get this, so this is a quote from one of them at when talking to whomever. I'll be out in 30 days. Las Vegas teen accused in deadly crash involving retired cop saying he'd get just a slap on the wrist. Because, again, they see other individuals doing things like this, thinking that because they're teenagers that they are not above the law, but because they're teenagers when some of these incidents happen, that they won't be tried as an adult to where there's leniency. And then my argument is, in instances like this, there needs to be less leniency and there needs to be even more harsh, fierce punishments. So, for example, obviously, it's a crime to run into a theater, a crowded theater and scream fire, right? Like that's like
right.
like right, it's illegal. Now, if you're an individual that runs into a theater and screams fire and you record it and post it on your social media as a prank video, or you have it on your Instagram live or your Facebook live or TikTok, whatever it is you put it on. Me personally, I think that whatever the normal charge would be for social media crimes, it should be even there should be even more punishment. So, this, for example, if you have a 3-year assault charge, you 3 years behind bars for first degree assault. But what you did was you took videos of you walking around assaulting people to post onto your social media. They should almost double that. You know what I'm saying? Like they should crack down harder, be stricter, and punish harder for these social media crimes. So then that way, individuals that think they're going to copy that, even if they don't record it, but copy that because they continue to see people do it online. I genuinely think that you'll see less of those kinds of videos. I definitely think that those kinds of videos should be. It's a toss up because I remember that this was the same thing for like back in the 90s with hip hop. Is if a guy raps in a song or in a music video has illegal weapons or raps in a song about crimes that they commit, is that incriminating? That is it's the same thing. So if a YouTuber makes a prank video where he goes into an airport and screams bomb, and if he gets charged, well, what if no, it was all staged, like, but then for that kind of it gets into gray area, and where it's like, okay, well, in movies have people that do things that are illegal, but it's a movie. But it's like, what if you staged a bunch of pranks on your YouTube, but that influenced people to break the law? It's a tough thing to kind of discuss, but it's something that I think needs to be looked into, and lawmakers should take into consideration. Like South Carolina did. Even if I'm an angry old man yelling at the clouds, I definitely think that that's something that should be taken into consideration.
Another one that I had found, and as you're talking, I'm going through my head, and I'm trying to remember some of these. Another one that ended in a shooting this happened in Tennessee 2 years ago at an urban air trampoline park in Nashville. So this guy is basically, he's doing a quote unquote robbery prank, and he goes up and he basically takes this butcher knife and he's going up trying to, like he's going to rob people. And this guy pulls his gun and kills the guy. Before he even had a chance to say, hey, it's a prank on YouTube. And again, Tennessee clears the guy. They clear the guy for sure. It's like, dude, you're an idiot for, doing this in the first place. And yeah, this guy, so you're in danger. And I don't know if Tennessee is a stand your ground state or not, but somebody comes up to you with a butcher knife, yeah, I'm going to, if I'm with friends, if I was somebody I don't conceal and carry, but if I did, somebody comes up to me a butcher knife, you can be dang sure that I'm going to pop them, and for some people who think, well, it's just, it shouldn't be, people are just overreacting, and here's another thing too that I hear a lot of, and we've had this issue at our school for years when we have these prank wars that go on between classes, and property damage ends up happening, and people getting hurt ends up happening, and when people start complaining about it, they're like, oh, what's the big deal? It's just a prank. This is something. And I can go on this too. Saying this is a lack of. First of all, it's a lack of common sense. It's a lack of respect, and it's a lack of people not taking into consideration that your action is going to have consequences.
I'm with you because I remember. That actually reminded me. There was a year that I was in college, mind you, not living at home anymore, and my house got TP'd during during Clopton's junior senior wars. My house got TP'd, and I had been out of high school for a year at that point. And I just remember like my mother calling me like, "There's toilet paper in our tree in the front yard." I'm like, "Why?" And I don't know if some people just thought I was living at home, but yeah, no, I was in Kansas City. But I'll never I'll never forget. Do you remember in Troy High School? For our listeners, there's a high school that not too far from where we are, much larger than ours. There was a student. This was around the time I graduated, maybe before, maybe right after, or the same year. I don't remember. Who his prank was to put up an inflatable pool somewhere in the school and left the water running, and it ended up flooding and like ruining one of their gyms. Caused like
Yes,
thousands upon
yes, yes,
thousands
yes,
upon
yes, yes.
thousands of dollars of
Yep,
damage.
yep. I remember that. Yep.
And it's like, there's a big difference between like a little prank where maybe you put a bunch of balloons in the principal's office versus causing your school $100,000 worth of damage. Like, a substantial difference between what's a little hee prank and what is a real, not a good prank. Even though it was an accident, there's still consequences to your actions.
So one of our listeners on Twitch, thank you, Wagnator, that says is this morality subjective or objective? In a case like this, so basically, are you saying, okay, is this based on fact or is this based on opinion? In my view, when you're talking about when you're involving in a case like this, you're basing an action. So an action that happens to an individual, when you're causing harm or undue damage to somebody's property, or you're causing undue fear in somebody like that, to me, that is very, is objective. It's very objective because the act is happening. Now, what's their morality based on? Okay, that's purely subjective. But when I'm looking at the action that actually happens, people have to be held accountable for what they do. Going back to the prank war thing, when you mentioned that about that during that prank war, so now I've moved, and I'm 20 minutes from school. And one of the very first things that I did was I put I have 3 security cameras mounted on my property. One that covers my front yard, one that covers my doors, and one that covers my backyard. And they said, "Well, V, you're next. We're going to get you." And I said, "Do it." And I was serious as hard as I said, "Do it, and I'll press charges." And they're like, "Well, why?" Number one, you're trespassing. When you're on my property, now you guys are welcome. You want to come over and shoot some hoops on my basketball goal sometime, and you're in the neighborhood, or you want to stop by and have a glass of tea out on the porch or something like that, we can do that. But you come on my property uninvited. And then, of course, they're posting all this crap on social media, posting all this crap. Oh, we're throwing eggs at their house and all this other stuff. Okay, you're causing damage. You should be, and like you said earlier, you're incriminating yourself. So pardon my French, but your dumbass is putting it out there. Okay, so then you should be held accountable for what you've done. There's no gray area. If you've done something to cause, like you said, running, that case, when you talked about free speech, that's way back when the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was Oliver Wendell Holmes. And he was the one who actually made that statement about running into a crowd. Just because you have the freedom of speech doesn't mean you can run into a crowded theater and yell fire. Okay? Just because I have one of these, just because I have a phone, doesn't mean that I can go in and I can say, okay, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to have a tripod sit across the way, 50 yards across the way. I'm going to wear a cordless mic. Let's see what kind of rise I can get out of people if I scare them. What happens if I scare them and they jump up and they run out into traffic and they get hit by a bus? Okay? So in that case, am I and here's going to be in a case like that, would you say is that person responsible for that person's death? Well, they could have just said, it was just a prank. They should have known. Where, to me, the line is once you choose to do that action, whatever happens as a reaction to your action, you are held responsible. Maybe those two kids in Las Vegas were just going to come up and maybe do a little bump on that guy's tire and throw him off his bike. But somewhere in that transaction, what happened? Did they, man, what would it be like to kill somebody? I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, is there and you've kind of stated this already, but what should be that line?
No, I'm with you. And you hit it out the park when you said, for whatever the reaction is to your action, like those, you have to pay the Pied Piper. Like at the end of the day, and we see that in things like we might see that in like an involuntary manslaughter charge or whatever it might be. Like if you're speeding, let's say you're going 100 miles an hour, down the highway, and you lose control of your car, which causes you to wreck into another person's car, which injures them or kills them. Like you are in trouble. It's the same thing for like you said, where what's the reaction if one of the videos I see a lot is I'll see a guy, like you said, they'll have a wireless mic on, tripod, or someone filming them. They'll be walking around Walmart or a store, and I'll see them like in an aisle. Someone will be looking at something on the shelf and they'll throw an object at them. Even if it's like a soft pillow, but they'll throw something at them.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And they'll act like, they didn't know what was going on. If that person's reaction was to, fight you and hit you, or, if they caught you in the act of what they thought was something where you're trying to cause them physical harm, and they were to pull a gun on you, and shoot you, should they be charged for your negligence? It's tough. But again, from the jump, I think that, those kind of crimes, when you incriminate yourself by doing, these prank videos, again, and it'll come down to a thing where like, maybe it'll get to a point where, you would hope, because this is old me yelling at the clouds. I don't like prank videos. Like I've never found them funny. Like the only people whose pranks I've ever found funny were Jackass. All right.
Yes.
Those guys were signing waivers to beat the shit out of one another.
Yes.
But for example of like these YouTubers, in my opinion, I hope that it gets to a point where like, let's say they do the Parker twins or whatever those idiots' names are that you had mentioned, right? Where they go up and dressed like someone from the Middle East and take fake bombs into places, right? I think that should be an incriminating offense. So what I would like is that it gets to a point where if they upload videos like that, it is self-incriminating behavior that will send them to prison, unless they, at the very beginning of their video, have a disclaimer and proof that what they're doing is not real. So it's, from the jump, these are paid, how in like commercials have to disclose whether someone's a paid, paid actor or paid spokesperson. I think the same should be said for some of these prank videos that involve illegal activity.
Well, let me throw another curveball at you and see at what point should the social media sites be held accountable for posting this, allowing this stuff to be posted?
That's also tough because, they already have regulations for when there's certain kinds of crimes that are committed, like murder. For the most part, you can't find them on there, with the exception of Twitter. Twitter will let you put whatever you want on. their site, but like if someone posts a video of a murder on Facebook, usually it's taken down after a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, it should get to a point where maybe it would be great because that's the thing, is if Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok took those kind of videos away,
They wouldn't have any business.
or even, they wouldn't have money, or even if they demonetized them. If they demonetized them, that would also slow it down. But people are making money off that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, you put it in your Facebook Reels, you get 100,000 viewers, you get $500, and
Right.
why not?
Well,
Why not why not go to Walmart and pants people in public again? I made $500 for doing it last time.
I think
know?
if you, and the argument that you would, I think that people would get if you said, okay, this needs to be cut off. I think the argument that people would push, if it went to court or anything like this, they would put out, and we're going back to what we kind of repeating ourselves, but they would go with the whole free speech argument. This is because freedom of speech goes into, freedom of speech, be it verbal, nonverbal, or just as a prank or whatever, it's still considered to be free speech. But I think what people need, and we said this earlier too, your rights begin, and everybody knows this, your rights end where somebody else's rights begin.
Mm-hmm.
So when you cross that line and you say, okay, Facebook, you need TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, you guys need to crack down on this. And the moment they do this, then people are going to cry, well, that's my free speech.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, common sense just goes out the window. And if I was to have this discussion, one time we'd have to get a waiver signed or something, but I would love to have just a group of teenagers on and just talk about stuff like this, just to see what their reaction is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think to some adults are so naive to think, well, these kids are good, they're good kids and they're doing all this stuff, and it's a harmless prank. But if you get inside their headspace and you find out where they're at, I'm not even, to be able to, you can't wrap your mind around what these kids are doing. Our friend Jonathan Guthrie just got on and said, they F around and find out the scale may take effect on what these pranks are. Yeah, exactly. Somebody's going to have to be made. There's going to have to be a lot of examples to be made.
Yeah.
100%. And I think people are going to have to be noisy about it when they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody.
Yep. I'm with you.
I don't know, but
like for example, I know that this wasn't meant to be on. It wasn't meant to be uploaded, but there was that kid in, I think it was also Vegas, that was jumped and killed. It was a 16-year-old was killed by 10 other boys, teenage boys, because he was trying to get a phone or a vape pen or something from a younger friend that they stole it from, was murdered. We see those kind of mugging videos more and more and more and more, younger. Should an example be set, a precedent be set where it's like, hey, if you want to participate in the murder of someone like that, cool. You're going to give up 15 years of your life. I don't care if you can spend the first 3 years of it in a juvenile detention center, and then you can spend the rest in prison. But again, that's another conversation for another day, because I think I know there's a lot of work that our prison systems need. Mm-hmm. But I think that by being too lax on criminal activity, especially for younger generations, I think it's going to cause more harm than good. And the next couple of years, there's a lot of that I think, but I definitely think that where we're at with social media and the access that young people have to it, that is why we're starting to see more and more and more of it from younger generations.
And the story you're mentioning, so this was in it was in Las Vegas. So 8 juveniles are facing murder charges, senseless beating death of a 17-year-old Las Vegas high school student that was caught on video. This Jonathan Lewis died after being beaten when a fight broke out over a pair of stolen wireless headphones and possibly over a stolen marijuana vape pen. The beating happened on November 1st in Rancho Hills High School campus outside of Las Vegas. And this event was captured on video, and it was been widely shared on social media. You see 10 subjects kicking, stomping, and punching the victim. And he's on the ground. He's not defending himself. He's unconscious. And it said, and the prosecutor saying the video, this is what the prosecutor said, the video is very graphic and in my opinion is very void of humanity.
100%.
And, you know, this is, you know, issues that needs to be faced, folks. You know, first of all, we can end on these statements, and I'll give my closing thoughts, and Sean, you can give your closing thoughts. One thing that I need to say to parents who have teenagers and who have, you know, I'm speaking to myself when I say this. Be mindful of what your kids are watching, because kids, number one, kids will repeat and they say, "Man, that looks cool. I want to try that as well, and I can do that as well." We perpetuate the problem by not watching what our kids are watching. If you just give them, say, "Here's a phone, let it babysit you, go off and leave me alone," we're just as guilty of that as anybody else is, because then kids go out and they want to imitate that, or they want to do something similar to that on TikTok, YouTube, whatever. Be mindful of what is being shown, what they're watching. You know, regularly say, you know, I mean, you can put, and there's all kinds of software that is out there, especially if you have an Apple product, you can lock down your kid's phone. Well, I want to be the cool parent. Don't be the cool parent. Be the responsible parent. As a teacher, as a veteran teacher who's seen the advent of the cell phone and what social media has done, stuff like this has done, kids become, like this article mentions, you know, they become, you can't trust in the humanity of teenagers, because that's something that has to be instilled in them and taught to them by their elders. This is the right behavior. This is the wrong behavior. Watching this isn't good because this is using, you know, this is displaying bad judgment. So it lies on us as adults to our younger generation to be responsible and to hold these kids accountable. Sean?
No, I'm with you. I saw a video, and I'll kind of end on this. I saw a video earlier that was a teacher that was talking about the level of disrespect she has from her students, but then also some of the parents of said students when she addresses that she's having problems with those particular kids. If you were the victim of childhood trauma, and I'm not even necessarily getting in like you know, really bad childhood trauma, but I'm talking like, if you're traumatized because you were spanked as a child or you were yelled at as a child, anything like that, there's a fine line between the soft parenting that a lot of people are doing nowadays, leaving, you know, kids without any respect for not only themselves, but also people that should be considered authority figures, you know, like teachers, educators, police, you know, whatever it is. Soft parenting is not the answer. I'm not telling you to go out and to beat your kid. You don't even have to spank your kid. However, you do need to raise your kid. You're not there to be your child's friend.
Right.
You're there to be, you know, a guiding light for that child. And unfortunately, I feel like we have a lot of young people whose parents have better shit going on. So as someone that's a parent of two young kids, you know, one of my main focuses in life, you know, besides them growing up to be able to accomplish and chase whatever dreams that they have, is along the way, there's going to be levels of respect, and respect is earned, not given. And I think, like so many things nowadays, people believe that things are just given. And I think that's part of the problem. But again, V, it was wonderful talking to you.
Yep.
Next week will be great. Hopefully Travis will be able to jump on with us. And I'm so excited to be back. I know this is only week 2 after an extended break, but now that, you know, we're slowly but surely getting in the swing of things, it's nice to be back. And I'm excited for next week, and I'm excited for the topic that we'll have ready for you guys.
Yep. So thank you for joining us, and for Travis Kirkendall, Sean Phillips, my name is Andy Van Beber. Thanks for joining us this week, and be a friend, tell a friend, and follow us on all media outlets. Until next week, happy Thanksgiving and good night.
Gobble gobble. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.